People are slowly leaving the graveyard in a tiny French village. As it happens, all of these individuals were once deceased. The locals, who have no idea what is going on, watch them in disbelief. The town council calls a meeting to address the matter because the gathering keeps getting bigger by the second. The mayor adds that although no one has been able to explain the occurrence, dead people are reviving in every nation. 70 million people have reportedly been brought back to life worldwide. After a little more than 2 hours of resurrections in this little town, about 13,000 people were brought back and are currently strolling the streets. The council discovers that the revived population is made up of individuals who passed away within the last 10 years by looking through the cemetery registration. Individuals of all ages, including men and women, are present, but over 65% are older than 60. Their bodies are in excellent condition, and any pre-death illness has vanished, which is the only thing they have in common. The mayor makes the decision to turn the warehouses and the neighborhood community center into shelters for the returning, in order to keep such a large number of people off the streets. In order to identify them and return them to their families, it is crucial to keep them all together in one location. They have all the rights of regular people again because they are in excellent health. The council estimates that it will take 3 to 6 months to complete this entire procedure. The army and police start preparing the facilities right once for all of the returning, who will be grouped by age and gender. They have to abide by UN regulations, which are quite similar to those governing refugee aid. One of the resurrected is immediately identified as Martha, the mayor's wife. She's sent home after someone tries to take her to the mayor, who declines to see her. All of the returned are gathered by soldiers in buses and transported to the facility. They have to keep them in order and prevent them from straying. Soon after, council member Isham and his spouse Veronique arrive at a shelter in search of their 6-year-old son Sylvain, who passed away a few years prior. They observed that although the inmates are being questioned and evaluated, they show no emotion at all. They seem to be silently gazing off into space all the time, only speaking when someone speaks to them first. A nurse advises a mother who is frozen by the shock of seeing her resurrected baby that she can either take the child home right now or keep him in there until she is ready. A soldier is shown a photo of their son by Isham and Veronique. The couple is surprised to discover that he hasn't aged at all when he eventually invites Sylvain over. They are also informed that they are welcome to visit him as much as they like, and that he can remain here until they are ready. He eventually gets to see his wife again at the mayor's mansion. When he arrives home, Martha greets him and makes remarks on minor details like his tardiness or appearance of fatigue. She acts as though she hasn't left, even touching his face. Rachel, however, continues to avoid the facilities and finds the return she encounters on the streets unsettling. She's constantly unsure about how to handle this circumstance at home. She had already moved on and grieved for her husband, Mathieu, who passed away in a vehicle accident 2 years ago. She could feel like she was going back in time if she brought him back into her life. Mathieu refuses to sleep in the shelter dorms, and the nurses must remind him to do so. Isham mentions later at work that Rachel has been avoiding him, but she merely makes up a lot of excuses since she feels awkward about going back to work at the cafeteria. Isham talks about his visit to Sylvain and expresses his joy at seeing him play as though he had never passed away. Rachel swiftly shifts the topic when he inquires about her husband. The town council meets again a few days later to talk about the problems that are emerging as a result of the returned. In addition to unemployment, they may have a housing issue. There is no assurance that they would be able to retain that employment in the first place, even if they were able to locate jobs for everyone. This is because the returning are slow and poor communicators. Since people occasionally have symptoms like disorientation and sleep disturbance that resemble concussion symptoms, the way the returned function is somewhat odd. Their motor functions, however, are flawless. As though they were in a dormant state, all of these symptoms fluctuate. The doctors have also seen that employment enables the returning person's health to improve. Therefore, even though the reintegration initiative is straining the council's money, abandoning it would have more detrimental effects. Mathieu is now again practicing architecture in the meantime, but the problems quickly surface as the council had anticipated. He communicates only when someone else speaks to him first and is incredibly slow and sluggish. His slow speech makes it difficult for the other participants in meetings to tell when he has finished speaking. Rachel hasn't tried to get in touch with Mathieu yet, despite the fact that he is already a part of the town life because of his profession, and he occasionally observes her from the window. It frightens Rachel when she sees Sylvain standing in a bush one afternoon, staring at nothing. Veronique comes over right away to pick up her son and sends him back to the park to play with other children. Hicham shows up while Veronique is observing him and remarks that they ought to bring Sylvain to live with them right away. Veronique, however, feels uneasy and declares she's leaving for home, using her fatigue as a justification. When Hicham takes their dog to play with Sylvain, they observe that the dog would bark at the elderly person. Later on, the council talks about a new problem. The old return frequently wander and are difficult to maintain in the facilities or in their homes, day or night. Because of their lack of environmental awareness, even a short walk can be hazardous for them. They also don't work because they're retired. According to experts, individuals might be searching for a familiar location, or it might simply be a reaction brought on by the trauma of dying. Research indicates that these specific returned are vivacious and highly resistant to infection, most likely as a result of having a lower body temperature than the average person. Dr. Gardet creates a medication to assist people sleep better at night and move less during the day in order to address this. This product is marketed and licensed swiftly, making it available to all families. Gardet also uses this medication to produce tranquilizer darts for the soldiers, stating that it merely acts as a mid-sedative on the recovered. They must be cautious about who they shoot, since a typical person might take 2 days off and wake up feeling ill, requiring days to recuperate. While observing the inmates one evening, the soldier informs Gardet that some of them are merely feigning to sleep. Suddenly, Gardet sees Mathieu getting dressed and heading out of the building. The soldier clarifies that Mathieu simply goes to work and does that every night. Gardet chooses to follow Mathieu because he finds this odd. To Gardet's amazement, a group of returned employees are meeting and conversing normally at the office. He's informed by the security guy that this is what they do each night. After work, Rachel sees Mathieu following her as she makes her way home. She and Mathieu begin walking home together in silence since neither of them has the courage to speak. Gardet has been observing Mathieu's actions, so he secretly follows them. Rachel hides in her room right away because she still finds her husband's presence awkward at home. To reintroduce Martha to the rest of the family, the mayor hosts a party in the interim. She says she never gets hungry in the evenings and is glad to meet everyone, but she doesn't eat. As like she heard something, she abruptly turns around and walks into the garden. According to her caretaker, she aimlessly wanders the yard for the entirety of her days. The mayor tries to call Martha back after he pursues her, but she ignores him and continues on her way, barely pausing to greet her granddaughter. Rachel eventually approaches Mathieu that evening, and they are able to speak. Unaware that Gardet is observing them via the window, she finally finds the courage to kiss him, and they wind up getting filthy in the living room. The council will talk about the return's low body temperature, which makes them look as eerie white figures on thermal cameras at its next meeting. They plan to affix a number of infrared cameras on balloons in order to monitor the return's nighttime activities, because they are keen to find out more about the enigmatic gatherings. Regardless of age or gender, they find that the returned cover an average of 9 kilometers per day when the first report is received. Even if the elderly are slow, they don't give up until they're finished. Although it's too early to identify any trends, the cameras also verify that night meetings are taking place throughout the city. The mayor watches Rachel leave the room as this is being conveyed. The elderly who have returned continue to walk around a lot as the days go by. Rachel is thrilled to have Mathieu back in her life and feels quite at ease with him. She believes she should cease attending council meetings since she finds the manner they discuss the returned offensive. Mathieu is always excited to go swimming and despises the heat now that summer has arrived. Veronique, who appears unhappy about having her son back in their home, is watching her son play outside in the meanwhile. Hicham quickly intervenes to stop Sylvain's game from moving too quickly as an old man unexpectedly reappears. His wife is running back inside when he turns to face her. Rachel gets out of bed one night to investigate after hearing a disturbance. She discovers Gardet outdoors, who says he understands her feelings and just wants to help her deal with the circumstance. He questions whether she is aware that Mathieu sneaks out to the office every night, but Rachel claims her husband is okay and just struggles to fall asleep. When Rachel returns to her room after ejecting Gardet, Mathieu is awake. She responds that she wasn't speaking to anyone when he asks whether she was. Later on at work, Mathieu's supervisor realizes that his report is nonsensical and tries to clarify the situation, but Mathieu is unable to comprehend him. He is consequently demoted to the factory area, where all of the returned work is located. The doctors present a significant update at the following council meeting. As it turns out, the returned semi-normal conduct isn't natural. Rather, they've been mimicking the actions of regular people and performing actions that they recall from their past lives. This implies that they are incapable of handling responsibility, and that, with the right training, they can only master extremely basic activities. Whether the returning must be removed from society, or if they can establish a very narrow niche for themselves, will be their decision. A few nights later, Rachel is unaware that Mathieu has woken up and left the house. Gardet follows him and approaches the night meeting sufficiently this time. The returned are all pointing at maps and conversing simultaneously about possible routes. Meanwhile, Sylvain has been hammering on the front door for an hour in an attempt to get out of the apartment. After dragging him away, Veronique informs Hicham that since she thinks Sylvain frightens the regular kids, they ought to think about using the government's special education program for the returned children. Hicham, though, has little faith in the council. Sylvain keeps turning his head away when Veronique tries to give him another dose of the tranquilizer, and an irate Hicham interrupts her. Veronique becomes agitated and claims that their son has never truly returned and merely wants to leave them. Martha tries to use a chair she brings to the garden to go over the fence, but the mayor stops her in time. The mayor tells Rachel about his predicament the following day. He fears that when he wakes up one morning, Martha won't be there. He acknowledges that he has been afraid of Martha recently and that last night he locked her in the bedroom. When the mayor asks Rachel about Mathieu, she walks away and won't speak. At work, Mathieu begins to experience flashbacks to the day he died, recalling that he had driven off with the car following an altercation with Rachel. Rachel eventually visits Gardet, who plays a video of Mathieu's initial interview for her. He gave flawless answers to the questions regarding his background and appeared to be smarter than the others, but he struggled with spontaneous communication. Furthermore, he was unaware that he had been absent for 2 years. Rachel asks how she can support her husband, but Gardet informs her that she has to accept that Mathieu will never be normal again. Rachel storms out, upset and frustrated. She finds Mathieu gone when she gets home. Sylvain observes an old man in the backyard of Hicham's house via the window. Martha persuades the mayor to return to sleep before she leaves the house, but he wakes up at the same moment when he hears her getting out of bed. A security guard tries to send them home after noticing the reassembled group at the park a short while later, but they ignore him. Something suddenly bursts up behind the guard. Explosions soon start to occur around the town, starting hazardous flames. All of the returned are assembling at a tunnel after fleeing their houses in the meantime. They have always talked about this idea in their meetings. Mathieu chooses to turn around after glancing at the helicopter as they descend the tunnels. Before long, the mayor realizes his wife is gone and drives out to find her. When he discovers her leaving with the other returned, he quickly pulls her into the car, but the others encircle the car to prevent them from driving away. Martha tells him to let go after asking whether he's tired and if he wants to accompany them. The mayor dies and returns in a split second, so the couple hides in the tunnel with the rest. A few hours later, the news reported that there had been no injuries from the blasts and that a nationwide curfew had been imposed. People are advised not to go looking for the returned because no one knows where they have disappeared to. Hicham refuses to let Sylvain go, even if Veronique believes they should. Eventually, Sylvain jumps out of desperation. When Hicham finds the body on the ground, he sobs, believing his son has died once more. But Sylvain is all right and leaves to join the other person who has returned. The military, determined to strike back, manufactures grenades that contain a specific poison that might cause irreversible unconsciousness. They soon discover a group of returned people attempting to enter the tunnels and begin gassing them, rendering each one of them unconscious, including Sylvain. When Mathieu gets home, he informs Rachel that he left work early the day after the altercation to speak with her and offer his apology. But when he couldn't find her at home, he went in search of her while driving so quickly that he was killed in the collision. Rachel had a meltdown because she is so overwhelmed with guilt. Gardet interrupts the moment by breaking into the apartment. The pair flees via the window when Mathieu hears him. Rachel follows Mathieu into a tunnel as she hears the distant gas explosions. She wanders for a while before crying and bidding him farewell with a kiss. Rachel must return home by herself when Mathieu departs. Rachel observes the soldiers returning the unconscious to the cemetery on her way back. After being placed atop their respective graves, each body gradually vanishes. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification to watch more interesting videos like this. Thanks for watching.